The massive chamber floated in the void between stars, a crystalline structure so large it could house entire cities. Inside, representatives from 47 different alien species sat in silence around a circular platform that glowed with ancient power. The air hummed with translation fields, allowing beings who had never breathed the same atmosphere to communicate as one. Ambassador Zixthor of the Velian Empire stood at the center of the platform. His body was made of living crystal that pulsed with different colors as emotions flowed through him. Today, those colors were deep red and angry orange. Around him, the other aliens waited. Some had tentacles instead of arms. Others floated in containment fields filled with methane gas. A few looked almost human except for the extra eyes or the blue skin, or the way their heads moved in impossible directions. For 3,000 years, this council had governed the galaxy. They had ended wars between species that lasted centuries. They had prevented the extinction of entire races. They had brought peace to a galaxy that had known only chaos. But today they faced a problem that made all their previous challenges seem simple. "The time has come," Zixthor began, his voice carrying through the translation fields in dozens of different languages and sounds. "The sacred truce of Sol 3 must end." The chamber erupted in whispers and strange alien sounds. The Theran representative, a creature that looked like a walking tree with too many branches, rustled its leaves nervously. The Kozani delegate, whose species resembled giant insects with glowing shells, clicked its mandibles in what might have been worry or excitement. War Master Kethavar of the Zoran species stood up from his seat. The Zoran were the military arm of the council, bred for war and conquest. Kethavar stood 8 feet tall, covered in natural armor that had evolved over millions of years of constant fighting. His 6 arms were crossed over his chest and his black eyes held no mercy. "The humans have grown beyond acceptable limits," Kethavar announced. "Our monitoring stations report population growth that defies natural law. Their energy consumption has increased by factors we cannot measure. They are expanding in ways that violate the terms of their containment." An elderly Quelthan representative raised one of her forearms. The Quelthans were known as the record keepers of the galaxy, living libraries who remembered everything that had ever happened. The truce was signed 3,000 Earth years ago. At that time, humanity controlled exactly one solar system. They had primitive fusion drives and weapons that could barely damage our scout ships. The truce granted them 100 star systems for expansion, with strict monitoring. "And now?" asked the floating ethereal delegate, its voice like wind through empty corridors. The Quelthan's expression grew troubled. "Our monitoring stations have detected irregularities, energy signatures that do not match known human technology, gravitational anomalies around their permitted systems, and their communications have gone completely dark for the past 50 years. Zixthor's crystal form flashed bright yellow, a sign of decision among his people. The humans were given their small corner of space as an act of mercy. They were young, violent, but ultimately harmless. We believed that given time and space they would mature into a civilized species that could join our council as junior members. Instead, Kethavar growled, they have become a potential threat. Our military analysts believe they may have developed weapons technology that could rival our own. This cannot be allowed." The discussion that followed lasted for hours. Some species argued for continued patience. The humans had not attacked anyone or broken the truce directly. Perhaps they were simply going through a natural technological development phase. Other species, led by the Zoran military faction, demanded immediate action. A species that could challenge the galactic order could not be allowed to continue growing stronger. Finally, after debates that stretched across multiple star cycles, the vote was called. 47 species cast their decisions into the ancient voting sphere at the center of the chamber. The sphere glowed brighter and brighter as each vote was counted, until finally it flashed once with brilliant white light. The decision was unanimous. War would be declared against humanity. Meanwhile, on a small blue planet in the Orion arm of the galaxy, Admiral Jake Morrison was having what he considered a perfectly normal Tuesday morning. He sat in his office at Space Command headquarters, drinking coffee from a mug that read, "Galaxy's Okayest Admiral," and reviewing reports from the outer colonies. Captain Lisa Hayes knocked on his door and entered without waiting for permission, which was perfectly normal for his chief of staff. She carried a datapad and wore the expression of someone who had interesting news but wasn't sure if it was good or bad. "Admiral," We just received a priority transmission from the old monitoring buoy near the galactic core, she said, settling into the chair across from his desk. Morrison looked up from his reports. The one we stuck out there 3 centuries ago. I thought that thing stopped working. Apparently not. It just intercepted and recorded a full session of the Galactic Council. They were discussing us. Morrison set down his coffee mug. That's nice. What did they have to say? Hayes activated her datapad, and a holographic projection filled the air above Morrison's desk. The recording showed the alien council chamber, with dozens of strange beings arguing in languages that the human translation software converted into subtitled text. Morrison watched with growing amusement as the aliens debated humanity's fate. When Ambassador Zixthor formally declared the truce ended and war declared against the human species, Morrison started chuckling. By the time War Master Kethavar began outlining their military response, Morrison was laughing out loud. Sir, Hayes asked, looking concerned. They're planning to attack us with a fleet of over 10,000 ships. Morrison wiped tears from his eyes. Lisa, call Commander Jackson and Dr. Cooper. Get them in here immediately. And send a message to the Colonial Defense Network. Tell them to power up the old systems. Which systems, sir? Morrison's grin was the kind that had made his enemies nervous for the past 30 years of military service. All of them, Captain. Every single system we've built in the past 3,000 years. Hayes stared at him. Sir, are you saying we've been preparing for this? Lisa, Morrison said, leaning back in his chair. We've been preparing for this since the day they stuck us in timeout. Did they really think we'd just sit there and play with rocks for 3 millennia? Within minutes, Commander Pete Jackson and Dr. Amy Cooper had arrived in Morrison's office. Jackson was head of fleet operations, a stocky man who had spent his entire career preparing for a war that everyone assumed would never come. Cooper was the lead xenobiologist, whose official job was studying alien life forms, but whose real job was much more interesting. Morrison replayed the Alien Council recording for them. Jackson started grinning halfway through. Cooper burst out laughing when the aliens began discussing humanity's primitive technology. So, Morrison said when the recording ended, they want to play. Should we tell them about the dimensional fold drives? What about the reality anchors? Jackson suggested. The temporal shields? Cooper added. The pocket universe colonies? Hayes chimed in. Morrison stood up and walked to the window that looked out over the sprawling complex of Space Command headquarters. In the distance, he could see the launch towers where the latest generation of human ships waited in their hidden bays. Beyond that, the sky itself seemed to shimmer slightly, a sign that the defensive networks were already powering up. No, he said finally. Let's surprise them. It's been a long time since humanity had a good war, and these aliens have been very polite neighbors. The least we can do is show them what 3,000 years of human innovation looks like. He turned back to his staff, and his expression was the look of a teacher who was about to give a very important lesson. Send a response to their declaration. Keep it short and sweet. Tell them we accept their challenge and we'll see them soon. As his staff hurried out to begin preparations, Morrison looked back out at the sky. Somewhere out there, an alien fleet was preparing to attack what they thought was a small primitive human civilization. They had no idea that humanity had spent the past 3,000 years turning their small corner of space into something that would have impressed gods. Morrison picked up his coffee mug, took a long sip and smiled. It was going to be a very interesting war. The message went out across human space faster than light itself, carried by communication networks that existed in dimensions the aliens had never discovered. Within hours, every human settlement from the core worlds to the furthest colonial outposts had received Admiral Morrison's simple order. Wake up the old systems. On New Terra, the second planet humanity had colonized after leaving Earth, Governor Steve Coleman stood in his command center watching displays that showed star maps the aliens had never seen. What the Galactic Council believed to be humanity's territory was just the visible layer, like the tip of an iceberg floating in an ocean of hidden space. Governor, his aide Lieutenant Karen Brooks reported, all stealth stations are coming online. The dimensional cloaking is dropping in sequence. Coleman nodded as he watched the displays change. Space around the human territories began to shimmer and fold. What had appeared to be empty void suddenly filled with structures that defied the laws of physics as the aliens understood them. Massive ring worlds appeared around stars that the aliens had recorded as uninhabited. Space stations the size of moons materialized from pocket dimensions. Entire star systems that had been hidden behind reality bends came back into normal space. The truth was simple and terrifying. Humanity had never stopped expanding. 3,000 years ago, when the aliens had generously granted humanity 100 star systems, humans had accepted the gift with gratitude and immediately begun working around the restrictions. The Truce had forbidden them from expanding beyond their designated territory, but it had said nothing about expanding into parallel dimensions, creating artificial pocket universes, or bending space itself to hide their true colonies. Dr. Amy Cooper stood in her laboratory on Research Station Prometheus, reviewing files that told the real story of human development. When the aliens had imposed their truce, humanity had been young and aggressive, but they had also been incredibly adaptable. The moment they realized they were being limited, they had begun finding ways around those limits. The dimensional fold technology came first. Cooper explained to her research team through a holographic conference call. About 200 years after the truce, our scientists discovered how to create small pocket dimensions. At first, they could only hold a few cubic meters of space, but we kept improving. Dr. Marcus Williams, calling in from Hidden Station 7, added his part of the story. By year 500 of the truce, we could create pocket dimensions large enough for entire cities. By year 1000, we were building artificial star systems inside folded space. The aliens never detected them because the energy signatures remained inside the dimensions. The reality was that humanity controlled not 100 star systems, but over 50,000. They had built colonies in dimensions that existed parallel to normal space, created artificial worlds that orbited stars and folded reality, and established outposts in universes that touched their own reality, only at carefully hidden points. Captain Tony Rivers stood on the bridge of the UES Harbinger, humanity's newest class of starship. The vessel was invisible to all known scanning methods, protected by technology that bent light and gravity around its hull. Around him, his crew monitored displays that showed the approaching alien fleet. "Captain," reported Ensign Mary Campbell from her sensor station, "the alien fleet just entered our outer detection grid. They're maintaining formation exactly as our tactical computers predicted." "How many ships?" Rivers asked. "Exactly 10,417 vessels, sir. 47 different ship designs representing each species in the Galactic Council. They're broadcasting on all frequencies, demanding our immediate surrender." Commander Alex Turner looked up from his tactical console with genuine amusement. "Sir, they're using standard military approach patterns from their databases. They have no idea we've been studying their tactics for 3,000 years. The truth was that humanity had never stopped watching the aliens. The truce had required human ships to stay within their designated territory, but it had said nothing about monitoring equipment. Humanity had spent 3 millennia studying alien technology, tactics, and capabilities. They had intercepted communications, analyzed ship designs, and recorded every military engagement in galactic history. Lieutenant Colonel Ben Turner, no relation to the ship's tactical officer, monitored the situation from Deep Space Observation Post 12. The station existed in a bubble of folded space that allowed it to watch the galactic core without being detected. He had spent the past 50 years of his career tracking alien fleet movements and reporting their capabilities to human military intelligence. The aliens are using exactly the same ship designs they had 800 years ago, Turner reported to Fleet Command. They've made minor improvements to weapons and shields, but their basic technology hasn't advanced significantly. They've become comfortable with their superior position and stopped innovating. That was the aliens' greatest mistake. While they had spent 3,000 years maintaining their empire and dealing with politics, humanity had spent the same time period in a technological evolution that had accelerated beyond anything the galaxy had seen before. The difference was necessity. The aliens controlled the galaxy and had no enemies that could truly threaten them. Humanity lived under constant threat of discovery and destruction. They had been forced to innovate or die, and they had chosen to innovate in ways that made death impossible. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, Director of Advanced Sciences at the Lunar Research Complex, reviewed the reports coming in from across human space. "The quantum consciousness transfer systems are fully operational," she announced to the Emergency Council session. Every human mind can be backed up and restored if necessary. Death has become optional. The temporal manipulation devices are ready, added Dr. Richard Stone from Temporal Research Station Alpha. We can slow time around our ships, speed up our weapons, and even create localized time loops for defense. President Ellen Brooks, attending the session from the hidden capital world of New Washington, listened to the reports with satisfaction. The aliens thought they were attacking a primitive civilization that had been trapped in a small corner of space for 3,000 years. They had no idea they were about to encounter a species that had turned theoretical physics into practical engineering. "What about our manufacturing capacity?" the president asked. General Chris Wang answered from Military Production Command. "We can build ships faster than the aliens can destroy them. Our automated factories exist in accelerated time streams. We can produce a full battle fleet in what feels like hours to the outside universe." The reports continued. Humanity had not just advanced their technology, they had reinvented the basic rules of how technology could work. They had learned to manipulate time, space, dimension, reality itself. They had turned their small corner of the galaxy into a hidden empire that spanned multiple universes. But the most impressive achievement was not technological. It was philosophical. 3,000 years of enforced isolation had taught humanity patience, planning, and preparation on a scale that the aliens could not comprehend. Every human alive knew about the truce. Every human alive had been prepared for this day. Every human alive was ready to show the galaxy what their species had become. Captain Lisa Hayes stood in Admiral Morrison's office, watching the real-time displays that showed alien fleet positions. "Admiral, the enemy fleet will reach our outer boundary in 6 hours. Should we deploy the visible defense platforms to maintain the illusion?" Morrison smiled as he watched the approaching alien ships. They moved in perfect formation, confident in their superior numbers and technology. They had no idea that humanity had been hoping for this day for 3,000 years. "No, Lisa," Morrison replied. "Let them come all the way in. Let them think they're winning right up until the moment we show them what humans have really been doing with our time." The alien fleet continued its approach, completely unaware that they were flying into the most sophisticated trap in galactic history. Behind them, space began to shimmer as humanity's true fleet began moving into position. The war was about to begin, but it would not go the way the aliens expected. Humanity was no longer the young primitive species that had signed the truce 3,000 years ago. They had become something entirely new, something the galaxy had never seen before, and they were about to give the aliens a lesson in the dangers of underestimating human creativity. Admiral Morrison stood in the war room deep beneath Space Command headquarters, surrounded by displays that showed the real extent of human civilization. The room itself was a marvel of engineering, existing in 17 different dimensions simultaneously to provide unlimited space for the command staff and their equipment. Around him, officers from every branch of human military service prepared for what would become known as the greatest revelation in galactic history. The alien fleet had crossed into human territory 2 hours ago, and their communications were becoming increasingly confused. Their sensors were detecting energy readings that made no sense according to their understanding of physics. Space itself seemed to be behaving strangely around them, with gravitational fields that shifted without warning and light that bent in impossible directions. "Admiral," reported Captain Lisa Hayes from her position at the main tactical display, "the alien fleet commander is requesting immediate communication with human leadership. They're demanding explanations for what they're calling impossible sensor readings." Morrison smiled as he watched the alien ships on the display. They moved cautiously now, their perfect formation broken as individual captains tried to understand what their instruments were telling them. "Put them through, Lisa. It's time we introduced ourselves properly." The main holographic projector activated, showing the interior of the alien flagship. War Master Kethvar appeared in the center of the display, his armored form tense with confusion and growing concern. Behind him, Morrison could see other alien officers working frantically at control panels, trying to make sense of readings that defied their understanding. "Human leader," Kethvar growled, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to being feared. "Explain these impossible energy signatures. Our sensors detect structures that cannot exist according to known physics." Morrison stepped forward so the aliens could see him clearly. "War Master Kethvar, I'm Admiral Jake Morrison of the Human Defense Forces. Welcome to our neighborhood. I hope you're enjoying the tour so far. This is no time for humor, HFY snarled. Our fleet detected gravitational anomalies that suggest the presence of structures larger than star systems. Yet our visual scanners show only empty space. What trickery is this? Morrison gestured to General Chris Wang, who stepped into view carrying a datapad. It's not trickery, War Master. It's 3,000 years of homework. You see, when you gave us that nice quiet corner of space, we got a bit bored, so we decided to redecorate. The transmission shifted to show external views from human monitoring stations. Slowly, the true scope of human development became visible as cloaking systems deactivated across hundreds of star systems. Ring worlds materialized around stars the aliens had thought were uninhabited. Massive space habitats unfolded from what had appeared to be empty void. Artificial planets appeared in stable orbits around carefully constructed suns. Dr. Nancy Price, Director of Advanced Sciences, joined Morrison in front of the projector. War Master, what you're seeing is dimensional engineering. We learned to fold space about 2,000 years ago. Those structures you're detecting exist in pocket dimensions that overlap with normal space. The alien fleet had stopped moving entirely now. Through their communication link, Morrison could hear alien voices chattering in dozens of languages as sensor operators tried to process what they were seeing. The energy readings were off their scales. The gravitational signatures indicated the presence of structures that were physically impossible, according to every theory of engineering the aliens possessed. This is impossible, HFY stated, but his voice had lost its confident authority. No species can manipulate space itself on this scale. The energy requirements alone would exceed the output of entire star systems. Morrison nodded thoughtfully. You're absolutely right about the energy requirements. That's why we had to build better stars. The display shifted again, this time showing the interior of one of humanity's artificial star systems. Instead of a natural fusion reaction, the star was revealed to be a controlled matter-antimatter reaction contained within fields that existed in folded spacetime. The energy output was precisely regulated and could be adjusted to meet the exact needs of the surrounding colonies. We've built about 15,000 artificial star systems so far, Morrison explained casually. They're much more efficient than natural ones, and we can place them exactly where we need them. No more worrying about planets being too far from their sun or orbital mechanics interfering with colonization. Commander Pete Jackson stepped forward to join the conversation. We also solved the faster-than-light travel problem. Your ships still use hyperspace tunnels, which are limited by the natural structure of spacetime. Our vessels travel through dimensional folds that we create ourselves. We can cross the galaxy in hours instead of months. HFY was silent for a long moment, and Morrison could see him processing the implications. An alien species that could manipulate space, time and matter at will was not just advanced. It was operating on a level that made the Galactic Council's technology look primitive by comparison. How many ships do you possess? HFY asked finally. Morrison looked thoughtful. That's actually a complicated question. We don't really build ships the way you do. We grow them. The display changed to show the interior of a human shipyard, but it looked nothing like the mechanical construction facilities the aliens were familiar with. Instead, it resembled a vast biological laboratory where ships were being cultivated in nutrient baths. The vessels grew from seed forms, developing their hull structures, weapon systems, and dimensional drives as they matured. Our ships are alive, Dr. Price explained. They can repair themselves, adapt to new situations, and even evolve improved capabilities during combat. They're also connected to our quantum consciousness network, so destroying one ship just means its mind transfers to a new body. As for numbers, Morrison continued, we can grow new ships faster than you can count them. Our automated shipyards exist in accelerated time streams. What takes you months to build, we can grow in minutes. The alien fleet had begun to spread out, no longer maintaining attack formation. Through the communication link, Morrison could hear urgent discussions as alien commanders tried to understand what they were facing. Their original plan had been to overwhelm human defenses with superior numbers and technology. Now they were realizing that humans possessed both superior numbers and superior technology. War Master, Morrison said, his tone becoming more serious. I want you to understand something important. We didn't spend 3,000 years preparing to fight you because we hated you. We prepared because we respected you. The Galactic Council has maintained peace across the galaxy for millions of years. That's an impressive achievement. But, General Wang added, You made one critical error in your calculations. You assumed that isolation would limit our development. Instead, it accelerated it. When you have unlimited time and unlimited motivation, humans can accomplish things that seem impossible. The display shifted one final time, showing a view from outside the galaxy itself. The image revealed the true scope of human expansion. Hidden colonies existed not just in parallel dimensions, but in alternate versions of the galaxy itself. Humanity had learned to travel between different realities, establishing outposts in universes where the laws of physics operated differently. We've been watching you for 3,000 years, Morrison concluded. We've studied your technology, your tactics, your politics, and your history. We know everything about you, and we've prepared for every possible scenario. This conversation is being recorded and transmitted to every world in the galaxy, so everyone will understand what happens next. Kethavar's form seemed to slump as the full weight of the situation became clear. What do you want from us? Morrison's expression became kindly, almost grandfatherly. We want to talk. You declared war on us, which was very rude, but we understand that you were acting out of fear. Fear makes people do stupid things. So here's what's going to happen. Your fleet is going to stand down, and we're going to have a nice civilized discussion about how the galaxy should really be run. And if we refuse, Morrison's smile never wavered, but something in his eyes became very cold. War Master, you came here with 10,000 ships to conquer what you thought was a primitive civilization. We could destroy your entire fleet without leaving this room, but we won't because that would be wasteful. Instead, we're going to show you what 3,000 years of human innovation really looks like. Around the alien fleet, space began to shimmer as the first wave of human warships began to decloak. The space around the alien fleet began to ripple like water disturbed by falling stones. War Master Kethavar watched from his flagship's bridge as impossible things started happening all around them. Ships materialized from nowhere, not emerging from hyperspace or decloaking, but simply becoming real where empty void had existed moments before. Captain Tony Rivers commanded the first human vessel to fully materialize. The UES Harbinger was sleek and organic-looking, more like a living creature than a machine. Its hull shifted colors as it moved, adapting to the surrounding environment in ways that made alien targeting systems struggle to maintain locks. War Master, Rivers broadcast on an open channel. This is Captain Rivers of the Human Expeditionary Fleet. You have 30 seconds to power down your weapons and prepare for inspection. This is your only warning. Kethavar looked around his bridge at his officers. The Zoran had conquered 17 star systems in their rise to power. They had never retreated from any battle. Their honor demanded that they fight even against impossible odds. All ships, Kethavar commanded, open fire. Show these humans the power of the Galactic Council. The alien fleet responded instantly. 10,000 ships unleashed their weapons simultaneously. Energy beams that could crack planets, missile swarms that could devastate entire fleets, and gravity weapons that could crush stars, all fired at once toward the human ships. Nothing happened. The weapons simply stopped working. Energy beams flickered and died before reaching their targets. Missiles lost power and drifted harmlessly through space. Gravity weapons activated but affected nothing except empty void. Commander Alex Turner stood at his tactical station aboard the Harbinger, watching the alien weapon systems with scientific interest. Captain, the probability manipulators are working perfectly. Enemy weapons are experiencing a 100% failure rate. What's our casualty count? Rivers asked. 0, sir. Their weapons are having no effect whatsoever. Rivers activated the communication system again. War Master, your weapons seem to be malfunctioning. Perhaps you should have them serviced before attempting galactic conquest. On the alien flagship, chaos erupted as weapon officers tried desperately to understand why their systems had stopped working. Every diagnostic showed that the weapons were functioning perfectly, but somehow they were not affecting the human ships at all. This is impossible, snarled the Zoran tactical officer. Our quantum disruptors should tear apart any known material. Our gravity crushers should collapse their ships into singularities. Dr. Amy Cooper, monitoring the battle from her research station, spoke to her team with satisfaction. The reality anchors are performing exactly as designed. Enemy weapons are being redirected to affect parallel dimensions where our ships don't exist. The human response began slowly at first. The Harbinger fired a single weapon, something that looked like a beam of twisted light. It struck a Zoran heavy cruiser and simply made the ship disappear. Not destroyed, not damaged, just gone as if it had never existed. Kethavar stared at the empty space where one of his most powerful ships had been. "Where did it go?" Rivers answered over the communication channel. "We relocated it to a parallel dimension where it can't hurt anyone. The crew is perfectly safe. They're just experiencing reality from a slightly different angle now." More human ships began firing. Each weapon was different, and each did something that defied alien understanding of physics. Some ships fired beams that made enemy vessels phase out of normal space. Others launched projectiles that opened holes in space-time itself. A few simply pointed at alien ships and made them stop working entirely. Lieutenant Mary Campbell reported from her sensor station. "Captain, the enemy fleet is trying to retreat. Several ships are attempting to enter hyperspace." "Let me guess," Rivers said with amusement. "They can't." "Correct, sir. The dimensional locks are holding them in normal space. The aliens found themselves trapped in a battle they could not win, against an enemy they could not hurt, using weapons they could not understand. Ship after ship vanished from their formation, not destroyed but simply relocated to dimensions where they could observe but not participate." Ensign Kate Sullivan, monitoring communications from the hidden base on New Terra, listened to the increasingly desperate chatter from the alien fleet. "Admiral Morrison, the aliens are requesting immediate ceasefire. They're offering unconditional surrender." Morrison, still standing in the war room, checked his watch. "How long has the battle been going on?" 17 minutes, sir." Morrison nodded thoughtfully. "That's about what our simulations predicted. Tell Captain Rivers to accept their surrender, but keep relocating ships until we've processed the entire fleet." The battle, if it could be called that, continued for exactly 17 minutes total, not because the humans needed that much time to win, but because they wanted to catalog every piece of alien technology for future study. Each ship was carefully examined by human scanning systems before being relocated to a safe dimension where the crews could wait comfortably until the situation was resolved. War Master Kethavar found himself commanding a fleet of ghosts. His ships could see and communicate with each other, but they existed in a slightly different version of reality where their weapons and engines no longer functioned. Around them, human ships moved with casual efficiency, herding the remaining alien vessels like a farmer gathering sheep. "This is War Master Kethavar to all human vessels," he broadcast, his voice heavy with defeat. "The Galactic Council fleet surrenders unconditionally. We request immediate negotiation," Captain Rivers responded from the Harbinger. "Surrender accepted, War Master. Please prepare for boarding. Our diplomatic team will be arriving shortly to discuss terms." The diplomatic team consisted of 3 humans who arrived via what could only be described as walking through a door that opened in empty space. They simply stepped from the human ship directly onto the alien flagship's bridge, as if the vacuum of space and the ship's hull were merely suggestions. Ambassador Sarah Mitchell led the team, flanked by Dr. Robert Chen, a specialist in alien psychology, and Colonel Frank Williams, a military advisor. Mitchell was a small woman with gray hair and kind eyes, but she carried herself with the confidence of someone who had never lost a negotiation. "War Master Kethavar," Mitchell said pleasantly. "I'm Ambassador Mitchell. I apologize for the dramatic entrance, but we find that first impressions are important in diplomatic relations." Kethavar looked at the humans with a mixture of fear and confusion. "How did you walk through space? How did you penetrate our shields?" Dr. Chen answered with scientific enthusiasm. "Your shields are designed to stop projectiles and energy weapons. We simply adjusted our molecular phase to pass through solid matter. It's really quite simple once you understand dimensional mechanics." "What do you want from us?" Kethavar asked. Mitchell smiled warmly. "We want to have a conversation about the future of galactic civilization. You see, the old system of council rule has some inefficiencies that we think could be improved." Colonel Williams added, "Your fleets are impressive, but they're designed for fighting wars against enemies with similar technology. That approach becomes problematic when you encounter a species that operates by different rules entirely." "Ambassador," Mitchell activated a small device that projected a holographic display showing the current state of the galaxy. "The Galactic Council has done admirable work maintaining peace for millions of years. But peace through intimidation has limitations. We prefer peace through cooperation and mutual benefit." "You're conquering us," Kethavar stated. "No," Mitchell replied gently. We're offering you a chance to evolve. Your species and your allies have tremendous potential, but you've been held back by outdated thinking and fear of change. Dr. Chen pulled out a datapad and began displaying charts and statistics. We've analyzed the social and economic systems of all 47 council species. With minor adjustments and some technological assistance, we could eliminate resource scarcity, end territorial conflicts, and provide living standards that would make your current world seem primitive. Mitchell concluded the presentation with a simple offer. Join us willingly, and we'll help you build a civilization that spans not just this galaxy but others as well. Resist, and we'll simply continue managing galactic affairs ourselves while you sit in timeout. Kethavar looked around his bridge at his officers, all of whom were listening to the human proposal with expressions of amazement and growing hope. The humans were offering not just peace but prosperity beyond anything the aliens had imagined possible. What choice do we have? Kethavar asked quietly. Ambassador Mitchell smiled. War Master, you always have a choice. That's what makes this interesting. 6 months after what historians would call the 17-minute war, the former Galactic Council chambers had been completely transformed. The ancient crystalline structure still floated in the void between stars, but now it pulsed with new energy signatures that made space itself more comfortable for the diverse species that gathered there. President Ellen Brooks stood at the center of the chamber, addressing representatives from all 47 former council species. Around her, the aliens sat in seats that had been redesigned by human engineers to provide perfect comfort for each species' unique biology. The Theran representative no longer needed to worry about atmospheric compatibility. The floating ethereal delegate could now maintain its energy form without constant power supplementation. Even the methane-breathing Kozani could participate without bulky environmental suits. The transition period is now complete, President Brooks announced. Her voice carried to every representative through translation systems that didn't just convert languages but also emotional context and cultural meaning. All 47 species have successfully integrated with the new galactic management system. Secretary of Galactic Affairs Matt Johnson stepped forward, carrying reports from across the galaxy. The results speak for themselves. Resource conflicts have dropped to zero. Territorial disputes no longer exist. Population health and happiness indices have increased by an average of 400% across all species. Ambassador Zixthor, the Velian who had originally declared war on humanity, raised one crystalline arm. His form now pulsed with colors that indicated contentment and curiosity, rather than the anger and fear he had shown months earlier. President Brooks, the improvements to our worlds have exceeded all expectations. Our people no longer suffer from the genetic degradation that has plagued us for millennia. How did your scientists solve problems that our best minds worked on for centuries? Dr. Nancy Price, now serving as Director of Interspecies Scientific Cooperation, smiled as she activated a holographic display. The solutions were actually quite simple once we understood the root causes. Your species' genetic problems were caused by exposure to specific radiation frequencies from your home star. We fixed it by adjusting the star's output to remove those frequencies. The display showed the Velian home system, where the star now burned with a slightly different spectrum of light. Around it, the planets glowed with renewed health as billions of Velians experienced genetic healing that had seemed impossible under the old system. War Master Kethavar, now serving as military advisor for peaceful conflict resolution, stood to address the assembly. His armor had been replaced with ceremonial robes that somehow managed to look both dignified and comfortable on his imposing frame. The humans have done more than solve our technical problems. They have given us something we lost long ago: hope for the future. General Chris Wang, attending the session via hologram from Human Defense Command, nodded respectfully to the former War Master. Kethavar, your people's military expertise has been invaluable in designing our new peacekeeping systems. Instead of ships built for war, we now have vessels designed for rescue, exploration, and rapid disaster response. The transformation had been remarkable to witness. Each alien species had been assigned human advisors who worked not as rulers, but as consultants and teachers. The humans had studied each species' unique challenges and developed solutions that seemed almost magical in their simplicity and effectiveness. The Kozani, who had fought a civil war for over 2,000 years, found their conflict ended when humans simply gave both sides better planets to colonize. Instead of fighting over limited resources, the two factions now competed to see who could build more impressive cities on their new worlds. The Quelthan, the galaxy's librarians and record keepers, had been given access to human quantum storage systems that allowed them to preserve and access information in ways they had never imagined. Their ancient mission to remember everything was now enhanced by technology that could store the complete history of entire universes. The floating ethereals, beings of pure energy who had always struggled with physical interaction, were provided with new interfaces that allowed them to experience solid matter and normal space without losing their energy-based nature. Governor Steve Coleman, reporting from New Terra, provided updates on the integration process. The cultural exchange programs are exceeding all projections. We now have Theran engineers working alongside human scientists to develop new forms of biotechnology. Zoran military strategists are helping us design better exploration protocols. Even the youngest species are contributing innovations we hadn't considered. But the most significant change was philosophical rather than technological. For millions of years, the galaxy had been governed by fear. Fear of other species, fear of resource scarcity, fear of change itself. The Galactic Council had maintained peace through strength and intimidation, keeping different species separated and suspicious of each other. Humanity had taken a completely different approach. Instead of ruling through fear, they governed through competence and generosity. Instead of maintaining separation, they encouraged cooperation and cultural exchange. Instead of hoarding advanced technology, they shared it freely and taught others how to improve upon it. Ambassador Sarah Mitchell, now serving as coordinator of interspecies relations, addressed a question that had been troubling many of the alien representatives. Some of you have asked why we share our advanced technology so freely. The answer is simple. We learned long ago that knowledge grows faster when it's shared rather than hoarded. Dr. Robert Chen, working from the new Galactic Research Institute, added his perspective. Every species brings unique insights to scientific problems. The Velian understanding of crystalline structures has already led to improvements in our dimensional engineering. Kozani biotechnology has enhanced our ship-growing techniques. Even the smallest contributions can lead to breakthrough discoveries. The results were visible across the galaxy. Worlds that had been dying from pollution or resource depletion were now thriving garden planets. Species that had been on the verge of extinction were experiencing population booms. Technologies that had remained unchanged for millennia were suddenly advancing at unprecedented rates. Colonel Frank Williams, now Director of Galactic Security, reported on the peace dividend. We've been able to redirect 90% of military resources toward exploration and scientific research. Our combined fleets are now exploring 17 different galaxies, and we've made contact with over 300 new species. President Brooks concluded the session with an announcement that surprised even the human representatives. The local cluster management committee has voted unanimously to approve the next phase of expansion. We're ready to begin the intergalactic cooperation project. The holographic display expanded to show not just their galaxy, but the entire local cluster of galaxies. Probe ships were already en route to Andromeda, equipped with the combined technologies and cultural insights of all 48 species working together. The universe is much larger than any of us imagined, Brooks continued, and we're going to explore it together, as partners and friends rather than as conquerors or subjects. Ambassador Zix Thor spoke for all the former council members when he asked, "What happens if we encounter hostile species in other galaxies? Species that won't accept peaceful cooperation?" Admiral Morrison, attending his first council session since the integration was completed, smiled with the same confidence he had shown 6 months earlier. "Then we'll do what we've always done. We'll give them a choice. Join us willingly and prosper, or sit in timeout while the rest of us get on with building a better universe." War Master Kethvar added thoughtfully, "And if they choose to fight?" Morrison's expression became gentle but firm. "Then we'll teach them the same lesson we taught you. Sometimes the best way to end a war is to make it impossible for anyone to fight." The session ended with representatives from 48 species working together to plan the greatest exploration project in galactic history. Outside the chamber, ships from dozens of different worlds worked side by side, preparing for journeys that would take them to places no one had ever imagined. The 3,000-year truce was indeed over. In its place had come something far better, a partnership that spanned galaxies and a future that held infinite possibilities for species that had learned to work together instead of fighting each other. And somewhere in the vast darkness between galaxies, probe ships carrying the hopes and dreams of 48 different species continued their journey toward distant stars, ready to extend an invitation to any intelligence they might find. Join us in building something wonderful, or watch from a safe distance while we do it anyway.